the Wheel of Fortune episode where it was people that annoy you, and they had this subgroup of people of the dad went completely off and picked the wrong word and was just labeled a racist for the rest of his life.
Oh yeah.
I know exactly the episode you're talking about because the right word was naggers.
We all got an opinion, but can you back yours up? Where you get your sources from? Hope that don't got you stuck. We gon' check you and your understanding of knowledge. That's regardless if you finished school or went to college. Not everything is as black and white as it seems. This show here is about expressing what you mean. Whether you get canceled or whether you get played. Welcome to the Canceled Podcast with Elliott and Jay.
So we'll just pick up where we left off, Phil. Sorry about that.
Can you kind of like give me a warm handoff? What did you last hear?
The last thing I heard was it had an uproar. I think after that it just dropped like immediately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, yeah. When it came out, I forgot exactly what year, but I was, like I said, I was 10, 5th grade. I was wearing a Dead Kenny shirt. He was like lying on the side. Rats were eating his eyes out, and teachers were giving me crap for it. But I was just like, I don't care. Like this, I just knew from the show itself and from just the reaction of other people that this show was upping the ante of The Simpsons, and I was already primed for it because I was such a big fan of The Simpsons as a kid. You know, even though I didn't understand the social and political commentary, I knew they were making digs at what was going on in the world around me. And I guess you could say it like South Park was like the baton pass to like really like make no side safe for the funny stuff that goes on in politics and things that we point out in human behavior. So, and I was never like a diehard fan where I would watch every episode, but every time I would catch it or a friend would talk to me about it, it was always hilarious. I collected a few episodes in mind that we can bring up later, but looking back on these episodes and thinking of not about the episode itself, but what it represented in that time frame. Especially the movie. Oh man, the movie was great. Personally, it helped me and my dad connect better because he loved the political commentary, and I just loved the fart and all the dirty jokes that they would have all the time. And then
those age groups, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't until this year I actually realized the name of the movie is actually a penis joke. Did you know that? Yeah. I just found that out recently. I was sitting there thinking of it. Yeah, I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, bigger, longer, and uncut. And I was like, there's no way. And then, yeah, Google confirmed it all for me. Okay. So what about you, Michael?
With me, I'm Michael. I can kind of tell my early thoughts on it of I grew up watching it, but it wasn't like I seeked it out. It was while I was in school, my friends and people would make references, and I'm like, what is this? And it just kind of felt like a dirty secret where I felt like I had to, like, my bedtime was at 9 and I had to stay up to watch like the South Park episode, and to kind of get these references and just having just a cartoon that was different from others back in the day, and having a younger version of me as like a child version of me comprehending of what does that mean other than the fart jokes and the funny Kenny getting killed. But it's interesting. I love just the sociology aspect. That's my background and early childhood development of like, how has culture evolved? How has it changed? How has South Park pushed the envelope, and how has current generations be desensitized to it too, where it's not offensive anymore because we're so used to it that we look at current cartoons for kids, and how had that changed from the 90s to now. And it's interesting where I currently work at a behavioral home, but also as a kindergarten teacher, it's interesting to see how generations have changed of how we consume media, but also the type of media of what is being talked about, what is being shown to our children, and how South Park kind of changed a lot of that, and how that humor is kind of formed to a lot of popular shows where it was meant for adults, and now like kids have grasped it, and now we have shows like BoJack Horseman or Rick and Morty or Family Guy, where all levels of people are watching and they still have the commentary, but it definitely has a target audience.
Yeah. Some would actually say like South Park was kind of like the birth of like adult animation, especially like within the States too, that you brought up those examples. Because when you look at Rick and Morty, it has such a cult following now. And it kind of covers the same kind of aspects of South Park does, but in a less satirical way. Like they have their moments, but South Park really does put our flaws like right back into our face, like almost immediately now. So I do like that. And Elliott, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat similar stories, but I actually, when I was a kid, it was like too intense for me. So when it was coming out when I was like 10, I was like, that's for bad kids. Like they're saying curse words and stuff. So I didn't watch it for years, but it was still like a cultural phenomenon. And like I would even say a quote like, I'm not fat, I'm big boned. And then kids would laugh. And that was from Carmen. And it's just like weird, like everybody would laugh. But as I got older, when I was about 18, 19, I actually went back and I watched every episode. Like I would just go to sleep watching a South Park episode, and eventually got through all of them. But yeah, I think those guys, they're like geniuses. They are comedic geniuses. There's something to it that they've figured out that's really funny.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I will say, with me, I enjoyed watching it from the first time I saw it, but it was definitely much more of like a hidden thing for me. Like my parents did not want me watching it at all, but I had older siblings, and so once it was on, they would just kind of knock on my door, wake me up. We would go downstairs with the giant fatback TVs. Since we're all like from the 90s, we know the fatback TVs, the heavy ones, and we just kind of gathered around, watch an episode or two, and then see what came on afterwards on Comedy Central. So it was a huge part of my childhood, and I've continuously followed it all the way into adulthood, all the way up until this point now. So I'm kind of glad to hear like we all had that some sort of shared instance and also unique instances with the show itself. So one thing relating towards the topic of how South Park kind of relates to modern day society, what were the episodes that stood out to you most, or one particular episode, and like how do you feel like it has kind of influenced you or influenced society in a modern day?
Yeah, and I think I would like to go just like understanding when did South Park come out and what was our society like when it first came about, because it's definitely evolved and moved forward to be more social commentary. But South Park first came out in 1997, like the first premiered, and that was when like Bill Clinton was president, and that was during the time of the sex scandal. But you got to look like The Daily Show on Comedy Central was barely a year old, and so even looking at current events of like there was no Columbine, 9/11 hasn't happened yet. There was no Patriot Act. Gay marriage was just like being discussed, but it wasn't like, oh, this is for sure going to be a thing for the future. It was like, that's a pipe dream. And also even the TV shows, there wasn't Family Guy or Archer or Rick and Morty and BoJack Horseman. And even looking at presidentials that were very polarizing of Obama and President Trump, like that would happen so far after.
Yeah, I kind of like that too, because ultimately it traversed several different presidents, like presidential terms, but was also able to capture all the nuances of each one. Because like I know even with Bill Clinton, they would also bring back his antics, I would say, in the recent episodes where they actually had him do the Bill and Bill show. Did you see that, where it's like Bill Clinton and Bill Cosby up to their own adventures, quote unquote. And so even with Hillary, when she was running for president in 2016, they would bring Bill on, that's a tongue twister, and talk about how he wanted to be the first gentleman instead of the first lady. So I love how they always throw that back and kind of say like, this is where we started off at. And then here we are today with Mr. Garrison being Trump, and then Barack Obama was heisting I forgot where they had the heist, but they performed the giant bank robbery and everyone was in on it, even McCain.
Yeah, Sarah Palin, everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting. It's transverse and it's evolved, but South Park has been going on for so long. But even like we look at social media consumption, we had to wait at a certain time period and catch it on their TV show to watch this episode and see these reruns. There was no Facebook or Instagram or social media platform where we could just see something controversial on our phones and be like, I need to watch this clip. It was all word of mouth. And I remember parents are in an uproar to try to cancel because every week was something notable of the first time seeing like a show that was meant for adult cartoons, but it looked like a regular cartoon for kids where you had main characters of kids going around their daily elementary lives, but the profanity, the cursing, is let alone a character dying in a horrific way. And on top of that, it was just kids navigating, and I think that's what's been hold true, even though they've gotten more commentary. It's these kids from a small town in Colorado who haven't seen diversity, haven't experienced the evolving of the community around them, and they're just trying to navigate what is right and wrong in their own eyes. And sometimes you have in their South Park episodes that aha moment where Stan will be like, I learned a lot from this, or people just suck. But it's just these kids navigating these hard issues.
Which episodes do you prefer, actually? The ones that leave with the message at the end, or the ones that where they're just like, yeah, this is awful? Because I feel like they have opened those windows a lot more to kind of just say, like, they look back at society and just kind of shrug their shoulders.
I think the first one that I remember being, quote, controversial, where it was an uproar where everyone was talking about, it was an episode called It Hits the Fan. It was season 5 and it came out in like 2001. And that's when they were able to uncensor the word shit. And they said it, I believe, like 162 times in the one episode because they got the approval of like, can we say this curse word? And I knew they were like, you can't say the F word, but they're like, how about this lesser one? And they got approved and they just overdid it. And at the point on the bottom left, they had a counter that would go on for the whole episode each time they said it.
That was a great episode.
And then you got to think like, for me, how that's evolved, and we can all agree on it, is back then just hearing that word on national TV was out like crazy. We wouldn't hear that type of language. But now looking at FX and AMC, when we look at like Walking Dead or other like Breaking Bad, we're seeing things where it's like partial nudity or those words that have like, I think, paid pilgrimage where before there was no way we'd hear or see those type of things.
And it's crazy how it's like the show both is integrated with the moment, but also comments on the moment from the outside while being in it, because obviously these episodes affect so many mindsets too. Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that specific moment, because I remember being like hyped for it too and just rolling on the ground laughing when they were just trying to get as many shits in as they could.
It was still funny, every shit.
Yeah. And it's just like the significance that change for culture, just for basic cable standards. Be like, what is allowed? What isn't allowed?
Would you say
like
too,
now
like,
if we see that in a TV show or a cartoon, we're like, that's all they did? Cool.
Would you
that's nothing.
To like why we're so free with like our vocabulary now? Because there's a lot of shows like they're not up there with South Park, but it seems like we are more desensitized like to actual just curse words in general. Like we're just like, whatever. So do you think those kind of moments kind of contributed towards that?
I think they led the way, or they were definitely one of the vanguards in freedom of speech in that sense, in terms of like entertainment at least.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're still, even though they're not the only ones with the balls to make commentary on any side, they are still today, I think it's still one of the leading forms of entertainment that isn't afraid to rip apart any of the sides, whether someone thinks it's right or wrong. South Park will find the kink in their chains and call them out on it. And then, even despite certain parts of cancel culture, South Park is still up, and I'm sure if they had come out with the stuff they have now in 1997, they would have been shut down immediately. But like what I know now that we're bringing up all the South Park from across time, they definitely took their time in making sure that they they would up the ante every episode or season and see how, like they did with the curse word, like, can we say this now? All right, we said this, now let's see if we can say this. Like I think the first episode, I remember one of the interviews with the creator said, like, the first episode, the ante for that episode was that I think Stan's dog was gay. And back in 1997, oh my God, it's a gay dog, and that started the snowball of what South Park was able to do in desensitizing. And I think different crowds of South Park become desensitized to it, but at the same time, it also makes us more aware if we're really wanting to get to know how society and humans are behaving right now. South Park makes it easier to point at those things about ourselves and talk about it.
I agree with Phil. I think just we can go in more specific examples of episodes, but one for me is when we look at the episodes, it's just they make fun of everyone. So it's not like we can say there are a liberal winged like cartoon that only make fun of Democrats. Like they've like the first few episodes had Jesus on it, and then we had the Muhammad episode, and then even cancel culture of things of that nature. So there was no one safe that, but deep down they would use the absurd and the controversy. But a lot of times it was just to prove the point that are we too quick to just and to go to even like that cancel culture to judge and shut down, or is there a point of people are just terrible and we just need to stop believing in things, or just we need to find the facts? And so every time I watch some of these newer episodes, they might talk about things I disagree with, but it points a bigger picture of some of these arguments is just like there shouldn't be this politicized, or how are we arguing about these things?
Yeah, I think part of what made the show go for so long is that they've often taken a nihilist position. Like they don't have a clear cut, we're on this side and you should believe this. It's really like making fun of both sides. Like, 2016 with Trump and Hillary Clinton, they were like, we have a giant douche or a turd sandwich. And I think that was just how a huge segment of the population felt. Like we have to choose between these two. But yeah, they attack from both sides and don't really leave anything firm at the end.
Oh yeah, like they really do. They always come from a neutral stance, but they're very offensive on both sides, and I love it. Like they're not afraid to attack anyone. Because because I do want to talk about how it relates to cancel culture at the end too. Because me and Elliott had this conversation in regards to their new platform, Integrity. So you got to have some integrity from Randy Marsh. And also the commentary on like the PC babies and PC principal and strong woman. So those are more modern characters that I do feel like they do play a specific role.
And they definitely parody.
They do take shots at.
I think South Park, especially in the beginning, was they would bring maybe like a celebrity or something like that, and they would be self-contained in their own world. And as it evolved, it like slowly became to the point where every episode is a social commentary in some way. Of they have the integrity farms, they had the giant COVID extravaganza was one episode. They had when Trump was talking about building a wall, they had a Joker episode where it was like a Mexican Joker, how they were the evil ones to come through, and it like became a self-fulfilling prophecy from them. And one of the ones I loved that I thought was hilarious was when they were playing like this cops and robbers, and Butters got like ostracized and had to go to like Mexico and become like a coyote. And it was like a day without a Mexican kind of thing, but it was with Butters. And he had to learn this. He didn't realize the culture that he was immersed in, but he like had to go there and try to get back in. And like it was like extreme cops and robbers where like they would team up with the immigration officers to not let Butters back.
Yeah, it was. I was reading up on that one last night. Actually, I was like doing my research, and it's called The Last Meheecans, like instead of Mohegans, The Last Meheecans.
Just got off the clock, just got on my chill. Called up my homie Brent to see what be the deal. What you trying to do? I'm just trying to heal. Hella floated, never bloated's what I'm trying to feel. Hop in the whip and